Welcome to the Showgirl Connection. I'm your host, Luann. Today in the studio with me is Natalie and Sue. And I want to say Natalie Portman.
Oh, I'll take it.
You really
I'll
could.
take it.
Natalie Romero
Yes.
and Sue Thorvik.
Yes.
So how come you have different last names in your mother-daughter?
There's a long story behind that. I mean,
I use my maiden name.
yes.
Okay, it's your maiden name.
And
Yes.
she uses her dad's name.
Oh, all right.
Yeah, and I
Okay.
made mine even more difficult and added my married name behind. So I'm Natalie Romero Gerbrecht.
Oh, I'm glad I didn't have to say that.
Yeah, you didn't have to say that.
I really would have gotten tongue-tied with that.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
So, anyway, I'm so happy to have you here in the studio with me today.
Thank you for
And
having us.
oh, my pleasure. This is going to be a really great interview because I was saying, well, we were talking before we came on the show, is that the vision of the Showgirl Connection kind of aligns itself with the Showgirl Legacy Foundation, which I'm the founder and president of, and that's to preserve the historic significance of the iconic showgirl as a performing artist.
Yes.
And so Sue and I are definitely the iconic showgirls.
Right.
Where Natalie is, you're straddling two different worlds. I mean, well, the stage show spectaculars are gone.
Yeah.
And so you never really danced in any of the big stage show spectaculars.
I got to do, right when I turned 16, I auditioned for E15. And so it wasn't quite a showgirl show, but it was still in that era of like big shows before Cirque, 80 dancers, all different roles.
Was that Liz Elliott?
Yeah.
Yeah.
FX.
Yes. So
Yeah.
I didn't know you were in EFX?
I was in EFX at 16 with Tommy Toon. Yeah.
Wow.
Going to high school on the dance team, competing for the dance studio. It was the busiest time of my life for sure.
I mean, how many of our generation even got to dance with Tommy Toon?
Right.
I mean, that's
Right. I remember I
That's
dropped her off at
huge.
15 on the front steps of the MGM for her to go in and audition. And off I went to teach. Yeah. The life of a dancer, a dance family.
well, a dance family,
Yeah.
like you
Yeah.
said.
Yeah.
So because you've been a dance teacher in Las Vegas for how many years?
Moved here in 94, 93, and then taught for Fernadaire and taught at UNLV for 14 years, taught tap.
And so you were in a dance studio with your mom from
From the moment I was born.
Yeah.
Yeah. The studio was like a second home. It was like probably more a home than our home. We spent more time at the studio than we did at home.
wow.
Yeah. So she grew up in the dance studio with a lot of kids that are dancing now on the Strip. So they all grew up together. Pretty fun connection.
That's a great connection. And in our connection, you and I were in Hello Hollywood Hello together at the MGM in
Yes.
Reno, Nevada.
Yes.
Talk about a big stage show spectacular.
Yes. And I auditioned here. The big audition was here, but they sent me to Reno.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
I did an audition here.
so what years were you there?
83 to 88.
Oh, so you got there earlier than I did because
Yeah.
I got there about 88 to 90. And I was getting confused earlier because we're both 6 feet tall. Well, I think you're 6'1".
Yes,
aren't
I'm
you?
6'1".
So I was wondering why you weren't in the tall nudes?
There
Because
was a group of tall girls in bluebells back then.
Yeah.
That were 6 foot. There was a few of us, or a couple, I should say.
yeah, which is unusual.
Yes.
Which
Which is why they needed me more for the Reno show and not the Vegas show.
Were you living in Reno? And you auditioned in Vegas and moved to Reno?
I had gone to Acapulco and danced in the Blair Farrington show. I'd gone to Puerto Rico and danced with Miller Reich. And then I came back and I was in between shows. I was in San Diego.
That's funny. Dad just brought up Puerto Rico, and I thought, is he making that up? Because you guys hadn't told me that.
You're holding
And you just confirmed it.
out on you.
All right.
Yes, I met your dad in Acapulco. He was the magician in the show and I was the showgirl.
And she also taught herself to speak Spanish in 6 months.
Yes.
Wow. See,
Yeah.
I was in Japan for 4 months and I only learned a couple of words.
Right. Became fluent in Spanish.
Well, so
Yeah.
but your husband spoke Spanish.
Only Spanish.
So there you go. I mean, you were like total immersion
Yeah.
school
Yes.
right there with your relationship.
Yes.
Well, I mean, I was speaking with the dressers, the wardrobe people only spoke Spanish. And so it was fun. I took Spanish in school and lived in San Diego. So
So is that where you grew up?
Grew up in San Diego. I took dance from my wonderful friend Diane Douglas, who introduced me to LA, Roland Dupre and Joe Tremaine and Louis Deprone. And so we, as a teenager, I would drive to LA to take dance. So yeah.
And I loved those stories. I definitely hung on to those stories. I was like, ooh, drive to LA and dance.
I did.
Wow. And so you were pregnant with Natalie in Hello Hollywood.
And Hello Hollywood, Hello. I did Space Queen. I did Space Queen pregnant. I do remember that.
Wow.
And I remember Miss Ava was pregnant at the time also with
Ryan.
No, Miss
With
Ava.
Laura? Oh,
Miss
with
Ava.
Stefan.
With Stefan.
With Stefan.
Yeah. So.
And then
that's their connection.
Because I was thinking of my connection when I first met you, and that was
Yes.
at Stefan's Celebration of Life.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I didn't. And then you were. I had interviewed Chet and Laura and Ryan,
Yes.
and they were talking about growing up. Ryan was talking about growing up in the dance studio with all these guys, and I didn't realize it was Stefan.
Mm-hmm.
And you said you were there as well.
Yes. Yeah. So when we moved to Vegas in '94, she started teaching at Fernadaire, and it turned into this epic village of showgirls with their kids working full-time teaching, and us kids just kind of took over Fernadaire. we kind of took over it. We ran the whole studio, and we're constantly in the office being told what our expectations were, and that we needed to calm down and chill out, and living off a vending machine. It was so much fun. I mean, we had a full gymnasium. We were able to learn gymnastics and use bars and do the beam, and then go into Miss Sharon's class and do theater and learn theater, and then go into each studio and focus on each skill. We did jazz, we did tap, we did ballet, and
they had ballet from Miss Pamela.
Yeah.
They had lifting from Mr. Sean.
Yes.
Yeah. And that's where I was saying the second time I saw you was at Sean's Celebration of Life.
Yeah.
Yes.
And Pamela and I were in Enter the Night together.
Yes.
And she became a dear, dear friend. And then we lost Pamela. I mean, it's sad, but it brings us all together. And
it does.
Yeah.
It
and
does.
that's why I named it the Showgirl Connection, because
Right.
the community that we have.
Yeah.
It's really amazing.
Yeah.
Really amazing.
Of really cool people. I would say the coolest people.
Well, I would too, but
I would say the coolest people. For
and I
sure.
actually have a lot of friends that aren't in the shows, and they're like envious of all the girlfriends that I have,
Yeah.
because there's so many of us that stay together and have luncheons together and
Cute.
parties together,
Right.
reunions together.
Right.
Yeah, because there's nothing like the bond of dancing in a show together, and especially like a showgirl show where you're topless. You're really vulnerable in those spaces with your coworkers, and so it makes lifelong connections.
So you said you did dance topless once. Was that in EFX?
That was
No,
not
'cause you
any
were too
effects.
young.
Yeah, I was too
You
young. At
couldn't have.
15, they said keep your top on.
Yes, that would make sense.
But then
Peep show, right?
Peep show. Yeah. So I had done a bunch of stuff and come back to Vegas, and Jerry Mitchell was doing Peep show, and they were looking for some locals because they had brought everyone in from New York. They had been working on Peep show for years in New York City.
Okay.
And there was a big debate on whether or not they were going to go topless. And so majority of the dancers from New York City did not want to go topless.
Okay.
So when they finally pulled the trigger and said, hey, we're going to go topless, they lost a lot of their New York cast and had to recast.
Interesting.
And gave me a really beautiful opportunity to join the show and dance with a lot of people that were from New York City. It really, changed and expanded my vision of what I was capable of, because when you grow up in Vegas, you kind of, or wherever you grow up, you see yourself just in that space. So to be surrounded by others that had done Broadway and done all these things, it started to reflect
And
a
saying,
new piece
hey,
of
I'm
me.
just as good.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because that, even when we were, in the shows, because I was in the shows from 79 to 91, it would be like the short people went to New York.
Right.
And the tall people came to Vegas, but there was still that element of that you're dancing topless. When the last show I was in was Enter the Night, and it was the producers from New York City. So it was like a cross between a Broadway musical and a Las Vegas review show.
Yeah.
And it was really interesting because they didn't know what to do with the showgirls. They didn't know how for them to move or
Yes.
or to dance when we
Right.
were topless. So it was a whole new learning experience for them.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
That's really interesting.
Yeah, it really was.
Yeah. And it ended up being really beautiful, stoic, balletic movement.
Yes.
that
Well, and
you-
there were a lot of us that were probably had been in, and it was my last show. So I think I was 35. And so there were a lot of us that were a little bit older too. So we could
Oh, that's
kind
cool.
of
I didn't
fill
know
in
that.
the blanks, you know,
Yeah.
with that we had been topless before, and
Okay.
you know that usually move this way.
Yeah, exactly. Because the dancers end up choreographing.
Yeah. In a sense, you're absolutely right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Many times. So yeah, so Peep Show was my first time going topless. And I was actually quite excited because I had heard most of my dance teachers, Pamela, Jamie Artiga, my mom, Chet was in these shows, Sean was in these shows. So I kind of idolized this idea of being so confident in your body that you were topless. It was such a, I don't know, a different experience for me growing up, knowing that the adults that I looked up to were comfortable and safe enough to dance topless in a show. So then when Peep Show came up, there was barely any hesitation.
Interesting.
You know, I was
Yeah.
like, I'm ready to do a topless show and embrace this femininity, this confidence, and
Oh, that's great.
you know,
Yeah.
it was really exhilarating. It was really quite a special time. And it was special to know that, you know, I wasn't in a space where some of my colleagues were nervous to share with their parents that they were in this show, or
Right.
should they invite their parents, or, you know, there was a little bit of uncomfortability around being topless.
Mhm.
And so it was cool to bring this confidence from the 80s
Yeah.
into
Yeah.
the 2000s.
That's really cool. Or
you know?
or you watched Chet's interview where he went to see Laura perform topless.
Yeah.
He was there,
Yeah.
and I thought, how wonderful is that? Because when I was growing up, it still was kind of a little risque.
Yeah.
And I grew up north of Seattle. My family was very conservative, and you know, nobody knew. My mom wouldn't really talk about her daughter
Right.
dancing in the shows in Las Vegas. And there's a lot of those stories out there, even
Yeah.
from some of the English girls. I mean,
Right.
we all grew up in the ballet studio, very kind of conservative,
Mhm.
and then we're dancing
But I-
topless.
And then you're
I
in
have a-
diamonds topless. Yeah.
I have a short little story that has to do with that, you know, because the only topless that I did do was Space Queen, because I was a bluebell. But there was a year or so where they asked me to understudy it almost every night, very often. And so my grandma and my great aunt had come to see the show, and they go, "Okay, Sue, you're doing Space Queen," and I go, "Oh, you know, I can't tonight. You know, I mean,
Yeah.
I can't. I mean, and so Jillian let me wear the jeweled bra.
Oh, okay.
And so they got to see
Aw.
me do it.
Aw.
Isn't
Wonderful.
Wasn't
And
that
you didn't have to
sweet?
be topless.
And I didn't have to be topless, and they let me do the spot.
Oh,
That's
So
cool.
that was a special moment that I remember.
Yeah.
And I was like, no, I can't.
Show my nipples.
So, you know, we had a great, wonderful group, and led by Jillian up in Reno, and I feel very, very grateful to have so many friends from that experience.
yeah. And a lot of people stayed in that show from beginning to end, where in Vegas you could bounce around. You know,
Right.
it was in Jubilee and Howley Hollywood and the Lido de Paris. You could just kind of bounce around.
Right.
Where Vegas or Reno, that was it.
That was it.
That was it.
Yeah.
So people would really, you know, talk about raising their families together
Yes.
and being in the shows
Yeah.
Right.
together.
And a lot of people stayed.
Yeah.
English girls, Australian girls. I mean, they stayed.
Oh, and they changed the whole like community in Reno as far as bringing arts and
Yeah.
dance, and
Yeah.
Yeah, it's true.
that was a big deal for Reno.
Shows are the best. Are the best. I am so happy to be second generation of show business. It's the best business.
Well, and I want to talk about that, but I think we should probably take a quick break, and then I'd like to talk more about your career.
Okay.
All right, we'll be back. The Showgirl Legacy Foundation is a 501c3 nonprofit dedicated to preserving the historic significance of the iconic showgirl as a performing artist. We achieve this through curriculum-based educational programs in partnership with the Las Vegas Academy of the Arts. The program includes a panel of entertainers and showgirls modeling authentic costumes for the visual arts students to paint. The students submit their artwork to the Showgirl Art Competition that becomes the annual Showgirl art and costume exhibit. The foundation also represents guest speakers that give historical presentations about the Las Vegas stage show spectaculars and their personal experiences. The speaker brings authentic show costumes for photo ops and tailors their presentations for conferences, conventions, luncheons, museums, and other venues. Recently added to the Foundation's repertoire is the talk show The Showgirl Connection with your host, Luann. She interviews former and current showgirls, dancers, entertainers, and all the people behind the scenes that make the magic happen. The Showgirl Connection wouldn't be possible without the partnership and support of WWDBTV and owner John Stiles. Learn more about us at showgirllegacy.org and castandcrewreunion.com. For questions, email us at info@showgirllegacy.org. So we're back, and we, as always, we're talking off camera, and more stories come up. But I was going to ask you, because I didn't realize you didn't dance topless because you were so tall.
Right.
That I always thought that the tall girls were dancing topless. So how did you feel when Natalie danced topless in Peep Show?
I was just so proud of her that she was proud of her own body and felt comfortable in her own body. And it's just a beautiful thing. I don't think of it as bad. I did that one understudy spot, topless, but I didn't think of it as bad. I thought of it as beautiful, and I was just proud of her, Yeah, really proud.
So did your mom or grandmother ever see you perform?
No. And my dad didn't come either. We like had this unspoken agreement. We were like, he was super proud of me for doing Peep Show, like beyond proud, because it was equity and it was a Broadway show here in Vegas and all the things. But both of us were like, because Peep Show was not Jubilee.
No.
It was not like just walking gracefully while your boobs were gracing the eyes of the audience. It was like, boy, let me get, it was lots of moving.
Oh, see, and Don Arden. Don Arden didn't do that. I mean, when you were dancing, you were wearing something for support.
Well,
and then when you were topless, you were doing more of the, the old classical traditional showgirl walks.
Right. And Peep Show was about the art of the seduction. So I was like, it's not really the space I want my dad to experience me in. So it was fine. It was fine. It was an unspoken, not an awkward thing. He wasn't disapproving of anything that I was doing, but we both silently agreed that maybe this is not the one you come watch.
Yeah. But he was an entertainer as well.
Yeah. He did magic. He was doing the magic act in Acapulco.
Uh-huh. Okay.
Was
he a dancer?
No, a magician. And then he toured with his uncle, who's famous, Beto el Boticario in Mexico City. So he had toured with him in his younger years. So he comes from a family of entertainers.
Yeah.
Nice. You've got it on both sides of the family.
Yeah, both spectrums. I've got the magician and the dancer.
So you were destined to be great.
Yeah, destined. And then my dad was I really am impressed with his ability to go from Mexico City to being an entertainer to falling in love with my mom and following her out to Reno, or they brought their lives to Reno.
Oh.
And he jumped in backstage and just, dove right in and learned as much as he could with the little English that he was speaking.
So he was in production backstage?
Yeah.
Wow. I never.
He became a rigger, a high rigger, right? Or
I'm
just
not
a
sure.
rigger?
I
think he did a bunch of different
I think he was doing
departments,
pyro. I think he was doing pyro back then. Yeah.
Which is what he just did now. He just did pyro for Chris Angel recently. But yeah.
Oh, so now he's in town.
He's in town. Yeah, he's
Okay.
in town, remarried, and I have how many siblings? I have 4 siblings with his. I'm the oldest of 6.
Wow.
So my mom has myself and my sister Nina, and
Okay.
then my dad remarried Vicky and has 4 kids. So it was quite the fun, full family experience.
Yeah. Wow.
Blended family, the first generation of blended things happening.
I was
So-
gonna say that the Peeps show story is how she got to LA, or part
It
of
is.
a part of how she
No,
got to LA,
100%. Yeah,
because
Jerry Mitchell.
Jerry Mitchell got her agent, or helped you get an agent.
Yeah,
in LA.
it started the conversation like I was speaking about earlier a little bit, was meeting these girls from New York and hearing their goals and what they were doing expanded my idea of what
Wow.
I could do.
Got
Because
it.
at the time I was thinking, really
Vegas.
in the back of my heart, I thought I want to be famous one day, right? That was the ultimate goal. I thought, oh, I want to be famous one day. But how, when, where was not in my vision yet. And I had graduated from high school, done EFX. I had also danced with a Polynesian show that took me to Japan for 4 summers in a row. So I
Nice.
had culturally been exposed and had experienced a bit of the world at a young age. And so knowing that LA was where the stars were, and I had grown up at a dance studio, we didn't really have hip hop at our dance studio. So at 18, after EFX, I moved to San Diego and trained with Culture Shock San Diego.
Okay.
That's where the Jabberwockies came from.
That is right.
Really?
Yes.
Okay, I didn't know that.
Yes. It was a very special time that I got to
So you were in the studio with them.
witness them birth Jabberwockies.
Dang.
Yeah.
So that's where she trained in her hip hop career.
Yes.
For her hip hop career.
Yeah. And some of my closest and dearest friends are still from Culture Shock San Diego. Shout out Culture Shock San Diego. And so I had gotten a little bit of hip hop, but financially was struggling at, 20 years old, wasn't able to just move to LA and afford it. And so I came back to Vegas and started working as a bevertainer at the Rio
Nice.
and hanging out with the Show in the Sky people. And
Wow.
then Peep Show came up. And so these New York girls were pouring into me and they said, you know what? You could easily move to LA and you can use us all as a reference. So I wrote this letter out to the agency and had Jerry Mitchell put his, reference in there, and a couple of the other dancers. And so LA was finally like, oh, okay, look at who we got here. And so, yeah, that was the whole Peep Show was the whole start of me getting to LA.
Dang. And
Yeah.
LA is your J-Lo.
LA is my J-Lo. Yes.
And Nicole Scherzinger.
And
Nicole Scherzinger was first. She toured with her first and did her video. That
Yeah.
was first, right?
Yeah, that was my first LA job, was Nicole Scherzinger's Right There music video that they needed a Polynesian dancer. So I had moved to LA and kind of per usual had auditioned for like 6 months and had nothing. Nose, crying down and out. Mom, what am I going to do? Should I stay? Should I go? And then this email came in for Nicole Scherzinger, and, just in that space of like, man, I'm so down and out. I just can't lose anymore from here. Let's just go,
Yeah.
And it worked in my advantage because when you are super nervous and eager, you kind of push things away. So it was a really interesting way the universe set me up for that audition. And, after multiple cuts and multiple hours, they then said, can anyone freestyle in Polynesian? And I was like, like just totally in shock, speechless. I was like, you cannot be telling me right now that the 5 years I've trained in Polynesian that had nothing to do with dance are coming into play in this audition.
Yeah.
And ever since that moment in LA, I was known as the Tahitian girl,
Really?
even though I'm Mexican and Caucasian and white,
Yeah.
whatever, European.
Yeah, but we were talking, you got just that great look. You could be
Ambiguous.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I was known as the Tahitian girl, even though I wasn't Tahitian, but I did dance Tahitian. And that was my first music video. And it was so exciting and
Wow.
exhilarating and exhausting. It was a 14-hour day.
Dang.
Started at like 4 a.m. and danced until the night.
And she started a relationship with Nicole Scherzinger where she would do a lot of shows for her for the next few years.
Travel the world. I
Yeah.
got to travel
Wow.
the world with her and go on private jets and experience the Middle East and one of our most special weekends was in Maldives. We got to go to the Maldives, these special little islands off of India.
Yeah.
And it was a whole resort opening, and we just got like a villa bungalow on the water. You could see the
Wow.
water, and it was full. Everything was included. Never had another job like this, but everything included: massages, facials. It was just the most special experience. So
Very
Nicole
cool.
is very, very close to me, and we speak often. She is one of the sweetest, kindest people, and I'm really lucky.
And we need to go to New York and see her.
I know she's only got a week left in her
Oh,
show.
that's it? Oh, I guess.
Yeah, she's.
And then from Nicole, there was a lot of other artists.
Yeah, so as far as J-Lo is concerned, I auditioned for her probably 5 times.
Wow.
And had gotten to the end each time. And, you know, you end the audition on this high note. You're one of the last people, and they say, okay, we'll call you, let you know what we decide. And that phone call just never came in. And so when they sent another email for another audition for her, I just was like, absolutely not. My heart can't take it, you know, emotionally I had gotten the no and gotten so close so many times that I couldn't. I was like, you know, I can't force her to hire me, and I can't, if it's not going to work out, it's not going to work out.
Yeah.
But Tabitha and Napoleon, who are also here from Vegas.
Yeah.
They were at that time her new choreographers.
Okay.
And Tara Perez, who is also from Vegas, who had been working with them for a long time, I kind of fit really good as Tara's opposite. So they had this vision of me being Tara's opposite. And so they tell me all this. And of course, I'm feeling on cloud 9. I'm like, okay, here we go. All right, one more audition. We got this. Choreographer's behind me. They want me to do it. Again, long audition, get to the end. She's sitting in front, you know, all super hot J-Lo staring. And she's like, you know, picking her dancers. And Tabitha's like, okay, we'll let you guys know. And so then I go home. I get a phone call from Tab, and she says, unfortunately,
no,
you are not going to be a dancer. But I love you so much, and I want you a part of this so intensely that I'm going to have you be her stand-in.
What?
So you're going to come into rehearsals where the artist did not pick you, but you are going to be her stand-in, learn her track, teach her and learn everything and work one-on-one with her. It was the most crazy feeling experience emotionally I've ever been a part of, you know, because
yeah, you go from what, 6 auditions to
knowing she didn't pick me and didn't want me to be her dancer, to then I'm going to tell you what your track is and how that's going to go.
She learns her choreography 7 different ways for 12 different tracks.
Yes.
And then helps teach it to J-Lo.
Yeah. Yeah, because I'm the only person that knows it, right? So what happens is like half of the rehearsal is the creation process. Yeah. And then she comes in for the second half and watches me as her stand-in with the dancers and says, you know, that doesn't feel that good. This would feel better. And so it's really on me to retain everything. And then she says, okay, Natalie, come show me what it is. And so the first time I had to show her what it was, I was like, it was Ain't It Funny? I was like, ain't it funny? She's looking at me. I'm like, ooh, I'm dying. My butt, my puckering everywhere. I'm like, what? She's like, you don't know the lyrics to my song? And I was like, dead, asleep, could have died to pull me out of the room, you know, and of course that night, you know, I'm like almost welling up, tears in my eyes, like, oh my God, I gotta know these lyrics, you know. And so that night I got all the lyrics, learned all of them. It was 22 songs. It was a full show, you know, and I studied and learned those lyrics, remembered which hand the microphone was in, and, you know, to the point that we fast forward 5 years.
Okay.
And we're here at the J-Lo residency and here in Vegas, all I have. And not only am I her stand-in, but I am also a dancer learning 2 tracks at one time, and
So now you're one of her dancers.
slayed it, killed it. Killed it.
Yeah, you
Not
did.
only did I know her part, I knew my part. I knew where the boys were. I knew where the props were. I mean, I honestly have
Wow.
never been more proud of myself. Yeah. Yeah. So instead of like getting totally
So talk
worked
about
up and
persistence.
yes. Yeah. And
You know,
not giving up.
Not giving up,
Not giving up.
because so many people would. You almost gave up.
Oh, yeah.
So many people would give up. It's
Oh,
like
yeah.
I auditioned 5 times.
Yes.
And now you're her like right-hand woman.
Yeah. And I had my son in 2020. We went through COVID and I moved back to Vegas. We spent some time apart. And then I just got to go to Saudi Arabia with her and do the stand-in again and be a part of that whole thing. And so it was really nice, really great relationship. Super positive, super kind. And yeah, what a journey. It was such an
She's
amazing journey.
Natalie's in the Netflix special of The Making. The Netflix special is the making of the residency, right?
Yeah.
And
There's
Natalie's-
a couple of documentaries I'm in. Yeah.
There's more than one? I've only seen one.
Yeah, well, there's the documentary about the Super Bowl, about the
that's
Vegas
right.
residency,
So cool.
about, I mean, she's got so much behind the scenes of all the things. Like we did the Grammys, we did the VMAs, we did Super Bowl, we did so many jobs.
So do you see yourself working with her like
Yeah, absolutely.
forever? Well, not forever.
For
but-
as long as possible. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, there's such a good
and I'm sure you keep learning new numbers and
yeah, there's such a good flow, and after a couple years of being her stand-in, I really understood what it feels like for her to sing a track and jump in and out of choreography, and so I was able to really advocate for her when choreographers would come in, because each number would get a choreographer, and each choreographer would want to make each number like the show.
Yeah.
Right. But they're not always understanding that there's 22 shows. Right. So there's got to be like a balance and ebb and flow of how much she really is giving and taking between each number.
and how much she can do.
And I really could
Insane.
advocate for her and say,
Yeah.
I don't think I could go upside down and sing like this.
And the connection, a little fun connection there. When she was young and we were back at Fernadaire, and Fernadaire would put on these huge productions that Chet and Ryan and Laura and so many of these kids were in. Natalie did a lot of lip syncing. One year she was chosen to be Gloria Estefan. She's supposed to be in the background.
Mm-hmm.
And she comes alive lip syncing to Gloria Estefan. I think she stole the show from the little kids that were supposed to be the focus in the front. But she really had a knack for being the singer.
Yeah.
From a young age.
Can you
It's
sing?
so.
Can I
are you a
sing?
good
I can
singer?
hold a tone. I don't know what.
No, but she was just lip syncing because
Yeah.
she'd be in, because we put on these productions, and then Fern would have these, principals, and I don't know. It was a whole production.
Concert Fantasy was epic. It was the ultimate recital. It was a recital on steroids. And like we got to have principal parts like she's talking about. And so I got to be Gloria Estefan. And in my creative space of like, I'm sitting there for 4 hours watching these classes do their recital dances, and I'm like learning all the words in the time, and then it comes time for show, and I was like, I am Gloria.
So when you see Natalie doing J-Lo's stand-in, it reminds me of that because she's lip syncing. Like you don't, as a
Well, I
stand-in,
had to use every skill I had ever come across for
Yeah.
J-Lo, and that was 100% a skill that I didn't expect to need
Yeah.
that came into
Yeah.
play for J-Lo, because
or memorization that she goes, you don't know my words.
you don't know my words, don't know the lyrics, and I was like, ooh. And then from that moment forward, I had to, push past every scary feeling, because it is a really scary feeling to have Miss J-Lo sitting in front of you and Tabitha in this room, and you're being her, and
Yeah.
let's get loud. And if you're like timid and shy and you're not like really let's get louding, then why are you here?
Yeah.
Why are we watching you?
Yeah.
So I had to embody my Gloria Estefan days at 15 years old, and like live and embody as if I was her, and really
So she can see
she can
herself
feel
in
it
you.
and
I
see
got to
it.
see herself in you.
Yes.
I got to see the rehearsal or a rehearsal
Oh yeah,
for
for the
for the
residency.
residency in 2016 with Natalie being J-Lo,
That's right.
and J-Lo was sitting behind me with Tabitha and
Yes.
Napoleon.
Yep.
And I got to see it, and I can hear them talking, and I'm watching my daughter on stage being
Wow.
J-Lo. It was pretty amazing.
That was
That
a
was
really
amazing.
special moment.
That was surreal.
Yeah.
That was surreal.
Yeah.
Talk about being proud.
Yeah, because a stand-in for J-Lo isn't like any other job you hear about often. Like
No.
a lot of other artists have stand-ins, but really the choreographer and the artists work on their part together. It's not really like up to the stand-in to bring that part to life.
Yeah.
It's really like kind of like standing in for commercials, like just a literal a placeholder,
Yeah.
But for J-Lo, she's such a interactive, hands-on creator of her show that I had to emulate her to my fullest extent, to like, even the parts that were free for her to move, I had to think and channel, what might she do in this moment? Would it be a shake? Would it be a throw of the hands? Would it be this, and so to like really embody that experience and be able to show my mom,
Yeah.
because we worked on that Vegas residency for 3 months, I think, like kind of nonstop. And it was a lot of hard work, and to know my track as a dancer, and to also know, actually at that time, I don't think I had a track. I was just focusing on Jennifer's track, but to be able to have her come
Yes.
and watch that.
Yeah.
Because it was only behind the scenes. It
Yeah.
was never filmed. It was,
Well, and she's your mom. I mean, she was the
Yes.
one that got you into the
Yes.
dancing. And,
yes.
she's your
Yes.
connection. She's
Well, and
your
it was a
connection.
bit of a fulfillment, like as far as a mother-daughter relationship goes, because despite loving all the Showgirl stuff, she did want to be in LA and dance in LA.
Yeah.
Like that was your original dream and
Right.
goal.
But I was too tall.
Right.
There was the girls, the boys, and then Sue. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm just too tall for LA. So it's so fun to see her.
Yeah. And it was really fulfilling for me to know that I could, share that gift.
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah.
Well, I think we're about ready to wrap it up.
Yes.
So, any words of wisdom to other dancers that are
To
out
other
there?
dancers, don't give up.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
mean that
don't
was
give
a
up.
great story.
Yeah.
And it's the
6 auditions.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
the hard stuff, the stuff that you don't like to do.
Yeah.
That's the stuff you got to do.
That's the stuff you got to do. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that
Yeah.
goes back to her. I guess I would say this. If you are a dancer trying things, and I was the dancer that always got second place in my solo, parents, you just have to stick to giving your kids the encouragement, because your encouragement and your belief in me is really
Oh.
what carried me
Oh, and
through.
her knowledge as a dancer. Her
Yeah.
knowledge as a dancer. I mean, to have it. I mean, that's what I love, those connections with the kids that their parents were dancers, and
I
now
think
they're
it's something
dancers.
special.
It
I think
really
there's
is.
something that we're born with, to be on stage is
Right.
something very special. It's not just the dance education. It's the dance education, but there's a little bit more to the performance.
And it has to be something coming from your
From your
heart too,
heart.
because you can't.
Yeah.
I mean, if Natalie didn't want to dance, she wouldn't
Right.
be dancing, because the dedication and commitment that it takes.
It's not like we're millionaires.
Or like the rejection and
Yeah,
just
the rejection.
hard work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. The number of parties I missed, the weekends I missed,
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Even for us, dancing in a show 6 nights a week, 2 shows a night, 3 on Saturday, you give up a lot,
a lot.
but boy, you gain a lot.
Yes.
We did.
Gain a lot.
Yes.
We did.
Get to be on
Thank
the
you
best
so
place
much.
in the world on the stage.
Well, thank you so much for coming in.
Yes. Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
Love that Showgirl connection.
Me too.
Me too.
See you next time on the Showgirl Connection.